applications on this shared decentralized infrastructure. This is huge. So, this is really what sparks the Web3 boom, the ability for developers to deploy their decentralized applications on a decentralized infrastructure without needing to worry about the nature at which it achieves decentralization. So there's this Cambrian explosion of innovation that goes on for several years, and the Web3 ecosystem discovers a myriad of use cases all across the industry. Anything that is on the internet or that we figured out how to do on the internet, there's basically been found a way to do that in a decentralized fashion. And again, the powerhouse feature that allowed this to happen is the abstract smart contracting language. Fast forward to today, Web3 still has not slowed down whatsoever. $30 billion of capital invested from VC funds. Over 65 companies valued at over $1 billion. This is as of January of this year, which is ridiculous for an industry that's only been around since like 2015. And today, Web3 awareness is basically universal. There is nobody that you'll talk to that hasn't heard of Web3 or blockchain, and probably that doesn't know somebody that maybe knows somebody that really knows about it at a deep level. So, given all of this progress, how the heck is Bitcoin still around? It doesn't have the smart contracting language, it doesn't have any of the cool features that these new technologies have, but it's still here, and it's not just here, it's at the top of the leaderboard still. What's going on? How is this possible? This is baffling, but the reason why is that Bitcoin's not really competing. It's doing something else. It has a different value proposition, and we're going to discuss that. So, to summarize the mission of Web3 and Bitcoin. So, there's like 90% of the same DNA between, also, I realize that Bitcoin can be considered under the Web3 umbrella, but for the purposes of this talk, I'm going to talk about them as if they're separate entities. So, the Web3, there's like 90% of the same DNA between these two areas. They both use blockchain to decentralize stuff. But they have different outlooks and different strategies for doing so. So Web3 has a broad mission. It's trying to do a lot with blockchain. It's trying to decentralize finance, identity, assets, NFTs, governance, make a corporate structure that doesn't rely on a centralized authority, decision making, so you can have bets with your friend without needing a bookie, and decentralized data storage. Realize that's not on the blockchain, but forgive me. And so much more. It's a lot going on. It touches basically every aspect of our life, or it can at least. I like to think of summarizing the Web3 mission as the goal of Web3 is to maximize blockchain's innovation and usability for the new decentralized internet. Big goal, and incredibly exciting work in all of these different areas, and there's a lot to do in all these places. But Bitcoin takes a different strategy. Bitcoin only has one goal, and that's to decentralize money. That's it. Bitcoin isn't concerned with any of the other use cases, not and dismissively, but Bitcoin has a specific view, and that's that the most important use case of this technology is decentralizing money, and it thinks it ought to try to do that in a way that, so Bitcoin's view is that if they get this one thing right, then a lot of the other stuff isn't gonna matter. If they just fix this one thing, then they can fix the world's problems. So this is a slogan that you hear in Bitcoin: fix the money, fix the world. I like to think of Bitcoin's mission summarizes, it's trying to create the best money in the world for the next 300 years. It feels different, right? It's heavier. It feels a bit more like they're taking themselves more seriously. Neither's correct. Neither view is right, but this is the difference that spawns a lot of the kind of like the phenotypes that you see in the ecosystems. Maybe thinking, okay, it's just money, right? It's what's so hard about making money? You know, every successor of Bitcoin has their own solution and their own way to do money. So why does Bitcoin feel the need to spend all of its energy on this relatively simple paradigm? So in order to explore this topic, we're going to make money together. We're going to think through what it takes to make a good money. So, step one, we have to find a bearer asset. What is a bearer asset? A bearer asset is an instrument that you use to measure value itself. So, yeah, you can think of it as like a measurement asset. It's how you measure how much something else is valuable. And this is not super easy, but let's take a shot. So, the first characteristic that our bearer asset has to have is it has to be measurable. You know, it's not a very good measurement tool if you can't measure with it. So, what's something that's measurable that we could try to make our money? Any ideas? What about the Eiffel Tower? You know, it's tall, it's got height. You know, what if the Eiffel Tower is our money? You know, you might think, okay, this obviously is ridiculous. Even though the Eiffel Tower is measurable, it's not divisible. You know, there's only one of them, so it's not a very good money. So now we have two categories. We have to find a money that's measurable and divisible. Okay, what's measurable and divisible? What about like apples? You know, we can make apples our money. You know, you can count them, so it's measurable. You can break them in half. That's good. But oh shoot, I stored my whole family's fortune in a vault for like a year. Now it's all rotten and gone. So okay, this is another thing that we have to look out for. The money has to be durable. And oh, also, apples grow on trees, and money has this aversion to growing on trees for some reason. So that's probably not going to work out. What that looks like is if we actually had apples as our money and they grow on trees, is that Bob down the street is going to have much easier access to the apples because he has an apple tree in his yard. So instead of the money working how it's supposed to be, which is people doing things that are valuable to try to get the money, people are just it's gonna be a rat race to see who can collect the most money without being productive. So yeah, apples are probably not going to work because they're neither durable nor scarce. So the money has to be scarce. Okay, measurable, divisible, durable, scarce. What do we got? What about diamonds? Diamonds are measurable. Divisible, not really, but they're small ones and big ones, so maybe that's okay. Durable, yeah, definitely, and scarce. Yeah, it's pretty hard to make a diamond. Oh shoot, but there's all these different shapes and colors and clarities and cuts of diamonds, so and they're worth different amounts, so you're gonna have to figure out the value of each diamond with respect to the other diamonds, and if your measurement tool is the diamond itself, it doesn't really make sense. Okay, this is gonna get confusing. So, okay, we have another characteristic. It has to be fungible or homogeneous. Each one unit of money should be worth any other one unit of money. Measurable, divisible, durable, scarce, fungible. Okay, this is getting ridiculously specific. What about gold? Gold, you know, it's measurable, it's divisible, you can break it apart, put it back together, it's incredibly durable, scarce. Well, it turns out gold is an excellent money, and it has been for quite some time. Gold has been the king for basically all of human civilization. It's been the best money of all time for 11,000 years running. You know, this is really, really old. It goes back to Mesopotamian times, basically when we were starting agriculture. That's when we started using gold, and we didn't stop until a few years ago. So, you know, gold is about as good as it gets in terms of representing money. But why are we here today? Well, because a new foe emerged. We have two more things that gold can't do well, which is globalization and the internet. Globalization, we're doing trade with people across the world, and there's a logistical component of moving gold that kind of prohibits us from using it for global trade. And the internet, you know, gold is not very compatible with e-commerce, unfortunately. So we're gonna have to come up with something else. Divisible, measurable, durable, scarce, fungible, global, and digital. Geez, this is tough. What about the Venezuelan bolivar? Oh, you know the Venezuelan bolivar, the former national currency of the great nation of Venezuela. You know, if you think through it, it's divisible, it's measurable, it's durable as much as any other paper money, it's scarce if they don't print more, and fungible. Global and digital, yeah, it could be, so maybe this will work. Well, unfortunately in 2018, there was a bout of hyperinflation where it took a wheelbarrow full of money to buy a single chicken. 14 million for a chicken is pretty ridiculous. And you realize that under all of these rules, there is a hidden rule, and that is you have to find a money that's all of these characteristics plus incorruptible by human beings. And that's the kicker. That's the thing that's super hard to do. So it's kind of an impossible question. How can human beings create a system that's incorruptible by other human beings? Well, it's really hard, and the answer is, well, you can't completely, but You get pretty close if you remove the need to trust other people and you put in a bunch of fail-safes, and that's the Bitcoin strategy. You remove complete need to trust any individual or single group of people, and you put in a bunch of fail-safes along the way, so if people try to cheat, then it becomes incredibly difficult for them. Enter Bitcoin. Bitcoin is durable, measurable, divisible, scarce, fungible, global, digital, incorruptible by human beings. I don't know, let's find out. Okay, let's think through what it takes to get a nefarious change into Bitcoin. If we wanted to change Bitcoin, let's say to make all coins on the network spendable by me, and I wanted to steal people's funds, or maybe I want to put a tracker on them so I can censor people or something like that. I want to put a nefarious change into Bitcoin. Well, the process for getting any major change into Bitcoin goes the same way. Step one, you pitch your idea in the Bitcoin Dev mailing list. This is the bat signal. This is how you shout from the rooftops your idea. It's a mailing list managed by the Linux Foundation. Anybody can join, anybody can post. Step two, you need to reach technical consensus amongst the core developers. This is much harder than it sounds. The core developer group is a large group of people spread out all over the world, and they don't like each other. They all think each other are trying to destroy Bitcoin, so they rarely agree about anything. So you have to get them all to agree that your idea is in, and you basically have to achieve unanimity in order to get any change in. Most proposals die here. This is why it's hard to get stuff into Bitcoin. Most things die at this level. And it's also a multi-year process, so you're probably going to tire out and give up on your mission. Okay, step three, you prepare for something called speedy trial. Okay, once you get a change through the developers and you're staging it to actually get into Bitcoin, there is a thing in Bitcoin called speedy trial, and this is a process at which the miners vote a change in. So how it works is the developers, they work together, they peer review the code, they get it ready, and then they schedule a date to start this speedy trial process. At that point, the miners have 3 months to get up to 95% support for a proposal. And if it doesn't reach 95%, it's killed. It's a fail fast system. 3 months, 95% of the hash power. It's ridiculously challenging. So the preparation phase involves a lot of lobbying. You have to go around the different miners and you have to convince them that this is in their best interest, but typically miners are financially motivated, so if you bribe them, okay, maybe you can get past speedy trial. Then you activate speedy trial, 3 months, 95% support, or else it dies there and your proposal fails. But let's say that you've bribed the developers, you've bribed the miners. There's one last step. There's the last failsafe is the user-activated soft fork. This is a phenomenon that's relatively unique to Bitcoin, and it's one that exists because there's a lot of people that run Bitcoin nodes that are not miners, but their job is to validate transactions. So let's say that you have a nefarious change that's actually going to get into Bitcoin. Well, what do the users do? They modify the software to reject any of the transactions and blocks that break the rules that they already agreed to, and they fork off. They have their own Bitcoin. This is the nuclear option. This could be the death of Bitcoin. You're gonna have a contentious fork where you have a lot of people working on one side and a lot of people working on the other. Nobody wants this to happen, but it's still in the technology. This might seem a bit far-fetched, a little bit like kind of cartoonish. You know, what's the likelihood of this actually happening? Well, in 2017, we got pretty close. In 2017, there was a group of incredibly successful companies, and the heads of those companies had most of the Bitcoin user base behind them. And collectively, they wanted to put a change to Bitcoin that would improve the experience of their users. They were not nefarious. They thought it would be good for Bitcoin. But they pitched the idea to the developers that they didn't like it because it would affect decentralization. Just marginally, but it would affect decentralization, so they shot it down. But the companies weren't used to having people tell them no, especially the fact that there were so many of the companies that were working together on this. So they skipped step 2 and they went straight to the lobbying stage of trying to lobby the miners for speedy trial, and they were successful. They got well over 95% support. They were somewhere around 97%. Then they activated speedy trial without the core developer support. What happened? The users got together and released a user-activated soft fork patch to software, and most of the nodes in the ecosystem were running this software. So the people, they were ready to die on their hill on their own Bitcoin. They weren't going to let the companies come in and change it. What happened? Close to the end of a 3-month period, the miners realized that there was going to be a contentious fork, and they acquiesced. The miners gave in. The miners left the proposal and understood that if Bitcoin had this contentious fork, it would hurt them more than not having this change in. So all in all, the system worked. And it's an incredibly tense time. If you ask anybody that was in Bitcoin, focusing on Bitcoin in 2017, they can recount this in detail. It's incredibly scary. But the system worked. The result of all of this complexity is that Bitcoin is incredibly patient when making changes, and it doesn't do anything that it doesn't have complete confidence that is a good move. Bitcoin has incredibly strong checks and balances in the system. So there, like basically, there's this Mexican standoff between all of the different groups in Bitcoin, and any one of those groups can stop a change from happening. So in order to get something in, everybody has to agree with it. There's no strong arming of Bitcoin. Bitcoin has no leader, company, or organization in charge. This is relatively unique. It's not even that there's no single person or centralized organization. There is no single decentralized unit. It's a bunch of different organizations have to share responsibility. So it sits in the middle of this massive group of people, and that's incredibly unique. So all in all, is it corruptible? Is it incorruptible? I don't know, maybe. But however, it's better than everything else that we've got by a few orders of magnitude. So, congrats, we did it. We made Bitcoin the best money in the world. Plus or minus some hand waving. We can talk in depth about why it is or isn't more, but for the rest of the talk, we're going to assume that we actually did figure it out, and the Bitcoin has fixed the money use case. And yeah, that's going to be the assumption for the rest of this talk. So, yay, congrats. Recent innovations. Is there really anything new in Bitcoin since 2009? I get this question a lot, and
the other computer, go ahead and download it.
Makes sense. Bitcoin doesn't seem like it, especially compared to the pace of growth of everything else. It's as if it's basically the same thing. Well, there's a lot of innovation going on, but it's mostly not going on at the base layer. The base layer is more or less ossifying, so it's staying the same, and people are having to build palaces on top of this bedrock.
He's here, I just don't know where he is.
What are the biggest areas of research in Bitcoin today? First, scalability. More, faster, cheaper transactions. We want to support the global payments network, and that's only possible if we scale. Privacy. We want to protect against the $5 wrench attack. You know, your security can be awesome, but if somebody comes to your house with a wrench and threatens to bash your stolen, if you don't give them your money, you're going to give them your money. So we want to help prevent that as best as we can. Extensibility. This is the kind of the bottom of the priority list of Bitcoin, is adding more features and making it more feature-rich. But it's still on the list, and the most recent change was about a year ago. It's called Taproot. It lets, compared to Ethereum, a relatively rudimentary smart contract to be deployed in Bitcoin. But however, it's orders of magnitude more complex than what Bitcoin had, and we're still just exploring what we can do with Taproot. So it's incredibly exciting. Okay, so what are the biggest outstanding issues with Bitcoin? It's too slow. It takes about 30 minutes to settle the transaction. If you've settled a Bitcoin transaction in the past 13 years, you've understood this. It's too expensive. $1 to $5 transaction fees. This is way too much for buying a cup of coffee at Starbucks. And it's too small. The bandwidth is too small. 7 transactions per second is not nearly good enough for a global payments network standard. Well, the most exciting thing on Bitcoin, in my opinion, is this layer 2 scaling solution called Bitcoin Lightning that aims to solve all 3 of these problems in one fell swoop without compromising the security benefits and the decentralization benefits of Bitcoin's base layer. It's taken like 7 years of active research and development, but we're finally at a point where it's getting mature and usable. So what does the Lightning Network let you do? The settlement time, it moves it from 30 minutes to under a second on average. Yes, you heard that correct. Under a second settlement time of the best money in the world. Fees, it moves it from $1 to $5, all-time high 60, to less than a penny on average. So what does this mean? We can move the best money in the world around faster and more efficiently and cheaper than any other money that's ever been devised. And on the right, you see a graph comparing Lightning's scalability to some of its proposed competitors, and nothing comes close. Okay, so we have this awesome payments network. We can move the best money in the world around really, really fast. What else is going on in Lightning? A lot. There's a lot going on in Lightning. This is a graph displaying a bunch of companies and points them out. On the left, you see all of the different wallet apps. Just to the right of the wallets, you see a company called Galoy and a bunch of neobanks, including Stripe Cash App, which has 70 million users, so there's 70 million people walking around with the Lightning wallets. And Chivo, the national Lightning app for the country of El Salvador. So that's pretty cool. And then in the upper right, you see Lightning native DeFi markets. Oh wait, this is starting to look more familiar. Other companies, we have gaming companies, we have communities, podcast streaming services, social media apps, peer-to-peer marketplaces, layer 3s, and massive companies accepting Bitcoin. Okay, this is starting to look more familiar. And what I'm trying to point out is that with Lightning, we're undergoing a similar Cambrian explosion to that of the Web3 ecosystem with the smart contracting system. Lightning is letting us develop at the pace that we can. There's no bottleneck anymore when we're developing on Lightning. So Lightning moves the world's best money at the speed of the internet. It lets developers move fast and break things without breaking Bitcoin, which is a very new concept. And yeah, again, Lightning is undergoing the same Cambrian explosion that Web3 went through when Ethereum came out. So if you're interested in learning more about Lightning, Lightning is really exciting. You can go to the Bitcoin Design Guide, bitcoin.design, or bolt.fun. Bitcoin Design Guide has a bunch of educational resources as well as Figma templates if you're trying to make an app yourself. Bolt.fun has a collection of super cool hackathon projects and proof of concepts built on Lightning. So what? Okay, we got the best money in the world. We can move it around really fast. Who cares? It's just money, right? Well, this is a video. I don't know. We started late. How much time do I have? Oh, really? Okay, so we can't watch the video, unfortunately. This is an amazing video put out by the Human Rights Foundation. Human Rights Foundation is interested in Bitcoin for an interesting reason. They look at Bitcoin as a vehicle for freedom in authoritarian countries, because those authoritarian countries are using their money as a means to thwart freedom on their people, because if the government can print more money, they're effectively stealing from citizens. So they analyze 3 different case studies, so one in Sudan, one in Venezuela, and one somewhere else. And they talk about their stories and how they're today using Bitcoin to fix their geopolitical problems. Takeaways: Bitcoin is money and nothing else. And it doesn't want to be anything else. Lightning unlocks the full potential of Bitcoin and really kind of pops the whole the cap off of everything. Bitcoin doesn't have many features, but if it's got a feature, it's probably the best in the world. It's incredibly slow and deliberate, and the few features that it has are powerhouses. And lastly, Bitcoin is incredibly important. This is why Bitcoin is so passionate. If you fix the money, you can fix the world. So hopefully this kind of paints a picture about where Bitcoin comes from and how it fits into the ecosystem. If you're interested in learning more about Bitcoin, Atlanta has an incredibly strong ecosystem of free educational content. So come to a meetup, meetup.com/AtlantaBitDevs. There's 3 different groups. Atlanta BitDevs, a technical group. Atlanta BitPlebs, a non-technical group talking about Bitcoin as a money and Bitcoin as an investment vehicle. And Terminus Labs. This is a new thing that we're starting out. It's a Bitcoin-focused co-working space. If you're not gung-ho about Bitcoin yet, that's fine. We still want to hang out with you. You're still welcome to come in and work in the co-working space. And you can learn more about that at terminus.money. Yeah, the office is like a mile from here, so if you're in the area, it's quite convenient. Yeah, thanks. That's all I got. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Alan.